Well, we're
Very, very,
COVID free from
very
this end too.
COVID-free. But you know, because it's so cold out there, sometimes you just find out that you're literally, because like today, I think I sat down. I remember sitting down at 9:30, and the next time I realized it was almost 7 p.m.
Do you know what? I wish I had that luxury. Every time I sit down, one baby or two would remind me that they haven't been fed or the diaper hasn't been changed. Just sitting down, having a lazy day in front of the TV, like my wish for 2022.
Oh, okay. So look, we're live. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening. We're here to share. We're here to answer the questions, actually. A lot of questions were sent into my DM. So we're here to answer those questions. And if you have more questions, we just want you to drop them and we're going to try and answer them in the next 30, 45 minutes because we are live and we're here to make sure that everyone out there can get their business questions answered. This week is like last week is myself and the amazing Angela, CEO of Illiberty, the great big brain. And as the weeks go on, we're going to have Angela again, and we're going to have some other people, some of our accountants, some other of our marketers, different people, sales people, all coming on board to help you guys. So Angela, let's start off with something really, one of the first questions I got, which was about, somebody was asking me that, it was more or less, okay, let me open it up and start buffering it. It said, hi Sam, thank you so much for last week's session. Can you ask the commercial lawyer Angela to go a bit deeper into T's and C's for businesses, please?
Okay, so yeah. Can I introduce myself first, just in case?
Yes, please.
Join us. So, hi everyone, I'm Angela Lopez Wanye. I'm a solicitor of the Senior Courts of England and Wales. So basically, I am a solicitor that practices law in the UK. I'm also founder of eLiberty. eLiberty is a legal consultancy for business owners and entrepreneurs. So we provide a range of business and commercial legal services, including drafting commercial documents such as T's and C's, licensing agreements, franchise agreements, right through to trademark registrations and data protection compliance. With all of the legal support that businesses need, we provide it. So everyone says sort of eLiberty, that's an interesting name. The E basically stands for e-commerce, basically the modern way of doing business. And the Liberty is basically our mission statement. So we are on a mission to empower you with the legal tools to go bigger and better in your business so that you can enjoy the liberty that comes from running your own business. So today I'll just be providing the legal nuggets. As Coach goes on, I'll be contributing the legal nuggets here and there. So just to answer the first question around T's and C's. So the way that the law works is that where you don't have a contract in writing, the law states that you have an oral agreement in place. So by putting T's and C's in place, you basically establish written contracts for your business. So think of T's and C's as constitutions for your transactions. Effective T's and C's should set out the scope of your services, when your fees are payable, what you're providing, what you're not providing, how you'll deal with disputes should one arise. It should deal with all of the things that should be relevant to the sale of your goods and services. So that's sort of T's and C's in a nutshell. So obviously as a commercial lawyer, I recommend having T's and C's in place. Even if you don't have T's and C's in place, you are operating T's and C's, just that they are oral T's and C's. And obviously the obvious problem with oral T's and C's is basically that the contract terms are uncertain because they're not written. So your client can say that you promised 10 coaching sessions and you would say, no, actually, I only said 5. And because it's not written, so that there's no certainty. So you have to have T's and C's in place. And what I will do today is I will begin sort of dropping sort of principles for effective T's and C's. I'll drop a principle in every session. So today, my principle is very basic. It's, kind of stuff you want to hear on a Monday evening. It's not law heavy per se, but the principle is very simple and it's around scoping. I sometimes see people that have like, robust terms and conditions in place, and they fail to do an obvious thing, which is to scope the service or the goods they're going to provide. And by scope, I mean to define it in sufficient details. So we'll use example of Coach Sam. So Coach Sam provides a range of coaching services and marketing services. So for example, if he sells me, let's say, a masterclass, he should be saying that, Angela, this masterclass comprises of X sessions that each last a minimum of 1 hour. And this is what we will be covering, an indication of what we'll be covering. And he will say, for example, if it's drafted properly, he will say, for example, that, the package you're buying does not include face-to-face sessions. So you should expect me to deliver all of the sessions online. The reason this is important is because as a lawyer, the bulk of the disputes I see are basically around scoping. So somebody says they purchased X, and you say they purchased Y. And because it hasn't been covered in sufficient detail in the T's and C's, it's not clear what has been purchased. So if, for example, as a coach, you never guarantee, the result or the outcome, I actually recommend putting that in your scope and saying that I will deliver this service using reasonable skill and care, but I cannot guarantee the results and I cannot guarantee the outcome because your input is fundamental to this process. So what you've done is you've scoped your services. You said, my obligation is to provide the services. My obligation is not to guarantee the results of the services, for instance. One of the things I do, for example, when I provide quotes to clients, I build in assumptions. So for example, I've got a job at the moment to draft a sublease for a client. And I asked the client, basically, a perfect job would involve me investigating the head lease to make sure that the party that's actually granting the lease to you actually has the title and that the head lease is actually valid. But if you want a cost-effective, if you want a cost-efficient option, I could just draft the sublease, but the assumption would be that you've investigated the head lease and you're satisfied that it's valid. So what I've done there is I've built in an assumption and I've scoped my service. So it's clear that my responsibility is simply to draft the document and I won't be picking up any of the title investigation responsibilities. So my tip number one today is, if you want to have effective business terms and conditions, you must scope your services or goods in sufficient detail. So if you sell, for example, aloe vera products, and in your amazing website, there's a box of, aloe vera products, you should be saying how many products are inside, what's not included. The hairbrush in the photo is not included, by the way. You have to purchase the hairbrush separately, for instance. And you should be saying, for example, that the aloe vera shampoo is 200 mils. If you want a larger meal, then it's X price. So again, what you're doing is you're scoping, you're making it clear what is to be delivered. Because if you make it clear what is to be delivered, and you're minimizing the opportunity for disputes and you're maximizing basically client relationships. So that's my tip number one.
just hold on there, and I'm loving it. Right. So as a business owner, and thank you for using my business as your first example, but as a business owner, this is the way I think. So number one, what we do is fractional, right? So we want to do things that, as a business owner, we want to focus on what we do best, and then we want to delegate other things to other people. So that's the whole fractional. It's like, we don't want to be the person that's doing the law and the accounting and the marketing, because we're going to go too thin. They're going to go too thin. Most of my clients are in real estate, some are into trading, some are into education. Nobody wants to go too thin. So as a fractional expert, and I'm throwing this word around, fractional, because fractional really means that if we could, if we went down to the city, for example, and we wanted to get a solicitor like you, they'll probably tell us for the year, we have to pay, I don't know, £300,000.
My former law firm wouldn't open an account for less than £3,000. So if you were coming to them and the services you wanted were less than £3,000, they'd say you're not even worth them opening a file for.
Oh, right. Look at that. So a lot
I could never bring my clients to my firm for this. It was like
Okay.
£500 jobs.
Okay. So I guess what I'm saying on behalf of the people that are watching and listening is, when we use the fractional approach, the whole idea is we can't hire a lawyer of your experience for a whole year, because that will probably strap all of our cash. But what we've been discussing is, how can we get the best of a lawyer like you for a fraction of the cost and a fraction of the responsibility? Really meaning, what I'm trying to say in other words is, without actually hiring you, how can we just pick your brain for a little bit while you're at home and then run away? And I guess I have the answers to that as well, because I guess I'm just asking the question and the answer, because we've been speaking about this behind closed doors. And I can see some people typing things on this. How can we actually speak to an Angela without being billed 500, 700 pounds an hour, which is what you deserve, if not even more. 2000. You want the people on my threads to run away altogether, like they're gonna take off. So I guess what the conversation we've been having, so that's for the people out there, the conversation we've been having with Angela and some other experts is, how do we apply the fractional dimension to her services? And by fractional, what I really mean is, as opposed to picking up a Joe Blogs that's still studying law, or a Joe Blogs that did law in another country, or a Joe Blogs that just graduated, doesn't really know.
Or an immigration expert, not a commercial expert.
Yeah, right. Or someone that's an immigration lawyer for commercial activities and all these stuff. How do we avoid getting them? Because one of them is your cousin or your neighbor or your neighbor's cousin or your friend's friend's friend. How do we cut to the chase and actually access a Angela for a fraction of the cost? So guys, if you just hang on, we're going to speak about that, how you can, because that's why we're here. We're here to serve the community, and we thought of the win-win. How can we make sure it works for Angela, and how can we make sure something works for you guys that are online as well? So if you have friends out there that need to hear this, please share the link, get them on board so they can ask their questions now. And we're going to explain to you the beginning of how we're going to do some fractional activities. While we wait for you to bring those people on, what I'm going to do is I'm going to really quickly just change the screen and talk about something else. So everyone out there, you can just think on the law stuff and write out your questions. If you have more law questions, write them out. Now, I'm going to pick on something that I promised when I put this on my status. I said we're going to speak about some ways that we can use things like Instagram or other social media handles, how we can use them to actually generate some more leads. And anyone looking in my background there would see that's what I do. Everywhere I go, people look at it, daily leads, sales funnels, organic, and people love it. And that's what we pretty much do every day. We generate anything, well, it depends on the clients, anything from 2 to 15 new leads a day. And if you haven't got a big team, you cannot sustain 15 leads a day. And I can even tell you that our team, we struggle on 3 leads a day, because when you have a lead, it doesn't mean that when you send them a message they're going to respond, doesn't mean when you call them they're going to answer. So you find out that you have people in your team that have to make 5, 6, sometimes 7, 8, 10 calls to get through to one lead that has emerged, and then the lead might not be the most convenient time for the lead. So you find that I recommend that if you can get somewhere between 10 to 15 new leads a month, that's a lot in your pipeline. You can nurture it, and you probably get maybe like a 30% conversion, meaning that not everyone that fills in a form can actually pay for your services. Some people fill it in because they want it, but they don't have the will or the finances to actually purchase. But they do want it, but they cannot purchase. They can't afford your services. There will be a fraction in there that can afford your services, but they will be spot for choice. So you have to demonstrate without a shadow of a doubt that your business and your service and your brand are the right ones that align with their values, aligns with their ethos, and that if they trust their time and their money to you, that intuitively, right from the inside, they will know that they've made the right decision connecting with you, and that your business or your brand will take them forward. So it's not just about generating the lead, it's the lead and making sure that the promise behind the lead actually works. So what I'm going to do really quickly is I'll show really, really quickly what a lead gen can look like. And guys, if you have questions, you need to drop them so I can see and answer them, or else I wouldn't know what you're asking. So I'm going to go with what I have already. So I'm just going to pick something really straightforward that works with leads. So I'll change my screen now, and hopefully everyone should see this. Right. So right now I'm showing you something that looks like a funnel. This is a marketing funnel, and it doesn't really matter what industry you're in. If you need clients, you need to understand marketing. I know that some industries you cannot be so forthright with your marketing. You'll be disqualified. You have to do it in a subtle way. But this model I'm showing goes across every single sector out there. So it's you can use it very subtly, and you can actually use it in a very blasé way. So Angela, can you see what I'm showing on the screen, by the way?
Yes, I can, thanks.
Everyone else can see, so I'm not just saying it and they can't see it. Okay, so it's a marketing funnel, and what you can do, there's a lead tactic. So there's an indirect way of marketing, and there's a direct way. For most people out there, if you don't like the idea of being salesy, you don't want people to think that, oh, they're pushing a sale in my face, or you don't want people to feel that what you're doing is too upfront. So what you want to do is you want to go for what we call an indirect marketing strategy, which is this. You can see my red dot moving, indirect. And under the indirect strategy, there are 3 ways to actually deliver this. The first is the story. The second is the proclamation and prediction. And the third is the secret. So even though this is a digital funnel, it looks simple. What I'm pointing out here is that before your funnel can be effective, before you can expect to generate leads daily from your funnel, you have to have a story that resonates with the point of pain of your audience, right? So that story shouldn't be about you or about your brand or about how good you are, because people sitting down, if we actually think of it, don't really care about how good you are. What they care about is, what can you do for them? What can your brand do for them? If you're a law practice, what can your law practice do for me? Can you save my butt from the bailiff? Can you save me from that court case? It's not. So people are always very interested in what it can do for them. So if you're, I've seen some of my real estate people out there. So if you're selling real estate, it's not so much you've got a house with 5 windows. It's more about, it's a house that Joe can live in safely and the roof won't collapse. Or it's a house that Joe can invest in, and every month it will give him a cash flow of this. Or it's a house that Joe can invest in, and because of the structures, you're quite sure that for the next 25 years, that house will have no structural defects. The roof is in place. It's in a very likable part of town. People want it. It's in demand. So your story always has to resonate with the point of pain of your audience. So think of your audience and what they want, not what you want or what you do. Think of what they want. That's your story bit there. Don't want to go too deep into it. And then when you've got your story, the idea is that you put your story onto your marketing funnel. Okay, so that when people actually open up the funnel with their attention span, which is about 5 to 15 seconds, that first 5 to 15 seconds, the story immediately starts to speak to their point of pain. So they think, hold on, this is for me. Put down that sandwich, put down that hamburger, lower the music, come out of that chat room, because this is for me. So that is how you want to start your marketing funnel. You always want to talk about a benefit that will be of value to those people. Okay, so that's really important. And so I'm not going to go much further into this, but I just wanted people to just touch and taste to know that marketing isn't posting on Facebook or I hear some people say social media posting. Posting is but posting is posting, but marketing is completely different. So if you want to market, you need to make sure your story sits on your funnel and it's a digital marketing strategy, not a social media posting thing. Okay, so take that in and have it as a nudge as one thing you can do under your indirect marketing. So it means that you're not salesy, you're not pushing anybody's face, you're not saying, come and buy this off me. You're just telling a story. And when people like the story, they just say, well, can I have your card? Or can I know where you are? Because I like what you said. And that's the way you can circumvent appearing to be pushy if you master storytelling. And that's interesting because that's what we actually train people on in our mastermind group. That's why we're so heavy on stories, because stories can actually cut through without people realizing that you're selling. Okay, so just wanted to say that so people can actually chew on that. So we're going to go back to, actually, let me say one more thing before we go back to Angela, because Angela is going to, if people have questions, we're just going to pick those questions and we're going to address them. Let me just show people one more thing that might like them in the world of marketing. Just one more way that you can, and by the way, this stuff, you can do it on Instagram, on YouTube, on Facebook, all day long, right? You can do it all day long. So I'm going to show you one more thing that I think would be viable, really viable for people here. Just one more thing, and then we're going to go back. So here, I'm going to speak to you about the value of what you're putting together, okay? So this is another, it's simple. We call this a value ladder. And what it is it shows how you can progress from a state of things being literally free or things being £5 or $5, and how you can actually, with your value add, you can gently start to increase the price of what you're doing. So here you can see it says free, and then you can do an offer that's the $7. And when you keep on building, right, you can get up to, that's it there, 25,000 or even more. So that's the ladder on the side. So it's a strategy. And what it's saying is, even though you have a service or a product that is worth 10 or 20,000 pounds, if you want to sell it to more people, you have to break it into smaller bits. If you tell most people to pay 25,000 pounds once, they will freeze, not because of the value, but because of their own belief system. All right. So if people have been we've been brought up very humble beginnings. When you heard figures being addressed in your family, you heard figures like £50, 50 quid is a lot, 100 quid is a lot. So if you've grown up hearing 50 quid is a lot, 100 quid is a lot, even though you have £100,000 now, anytime people come to you and they address figures above what your psyche deems to be normal, you just shut down. And it's nothing to do with your product or service. And as a master marketer, you need to understand that, right? So everyone that has a business, no matter what your business is, your first job in your business is your sales and your marketing. Doesn't matter if you're an engineer or you're a doctor or you're a lawyer. If you cannot sell and market what you're doing, no one's going to buy from you. If they don't buy from you, there's no cash flow. If there's no cash flow, there's no business. So subtly recognize that the value ladder is a system that we use to break down costs that seem huge. Eventually, at the end, you're still going to get the whole 25,000, but it goes in bits. It's like tasks. It's like what we teach in the North Star. It's like task rocks gold. It's all about breaking things down to things that people can manage. Because if people believe that figures are too far-fetched, they tend to shut down. Now, if somebody shuts down, you cannot actually control them. You can't say, well, you won't even know what's going on in their head in the first place. You don't hear them say, we'll get back to you. And even though they may come round to the price, they may pay that price to somebody else, because you have to make sure that you get your audience in front of you. So with a £25,000 product, one of the first ways to engage your audience is with an initial offer, which is a low-hanging fruit, something that people are not afraid of. And they feel that, well, we can pay this, we can afford to pay this, it won't hurt us. And then you start the relationship. because there will be 12 subliminal steps, 12 steps that they won't realize that they're taking between that first £10 or first £50 or first £100 to that 25, 30 or 50,000 pounds they're going to pay you, right? So I just wanted to share that because of what I was asked. So if you want specific things, guys, you need to ask those questions. You need to drop it in the box so we know. If you're on Facebook, we're watching, Twitter, we're watching, Instagram, we're watching, YouTube, we're watching as well. So we're live on all these platforms at the same time. Yes, because I'm a digital marketer, this is what I do. So, you know, it's natural for us to showcase, and this is what we can do for you. Even if you're wondering, can you do this? Of course you can. Talk to us and we'll show you how it's done. Okay, so I've touched on that. Now, I want to go back to Angela because we're going to wrap up in a minute. So I've given you my promise. We started off with the law and some T&C things. I've given you 2 really good tips in marketing. Now we're going back to the law. So Angela, I'm going to close my screen and it's back to you. I haven't got a question from anyone, but probably you can just answer based on the last thing that was said. I'll check the other platforms as well. I can't see any new questions floating in, Angela. So I think just go with the last topic we had.
Okay, I'll just continue with sort of business T's and C's. So I was saying before that actually that sometimes when I audit clients' contracts, I find that the contract conditions and terms are generally okay, but they make a very obvious mistake, which is actually not setting out the scope of their service or their goods in sufficient detail. And what that actually does is that actually cancels out the impact of the terms and conditions because it's not clear what is actually being exchanged. And as a commercial lawyer, the bulk of the claims that I've seen in the past relate to misunderstandings between the supplier and the ultimate client. So I gave the example earlier on about, you know, a coach, for example, for instance, sells you an amazing, you know, marketing package. And during the sale, you heard it was going to be, you know, 10 1-hour sessions. The coach said they were offering 10 30-minute sessions. And then there's a dispute around what services basically are owed and whether the services provided were complete or not. So as the program goes on, I'll be sharing more tips, but today's tip is around scoping. And I was saying that make sure when you're scoping that you set out what is included, number 1, what is not included, number 2. So going back to Sam's example, I said, for instance, if you know that you provide all of your services on a virtual basis, you should be making it clear in your T's and C's that this will be supplied on a virtual basis. So we will never meet you physically, just to avoid a situation where a client says, oh, you've sold me a coaching package and I was expecting to meet you. And doesn't say anywhere on your T's and C's that actually it was going to be a virtual sessions. So you make that very clear, for instance. So what's included, what's not included, whether you've worked on the basis of assumptions, you also need to include that. For instance, if you've made an assumption, let's say that you're into coaching and you specialize in scaling businesses as opposed to, you know, startups, and you've made the assumption that your client is looking to scale their business because that's what you provide. You need to be making that clear in the terms and conditions. Otherwise, you might have a situation where a client comes to you and actually they're a startup and you find that you can't work with them effectively because the model that you've set up is for scale ups. So tip number 1, what's included? Tip number 2, what's excluded? Tip number 3, are you working with assumptions? And the final one is restrictions, for instance. So if you've provided, for example, you've provided a fee in your terms and conditions, and, you know, in normal practice for you is to review your fee on an annual basis based on, you know, your supplier's fee, you know, reviews also, then you need to be saying in the contract that this fee applies generally. However, as of July every year, we review our fees and there's an opportunity that our fee may be adjusted to reflect inflation, for instance. So then again, you're just scoping the services, you're making everything clear to avoid disputes. So that's very important. So in the subsequent sessions, we'll be looking at actual legal terms. But the first one is, let it be very clear what you're providing and what you're not providing. Let it be very clear what your client is signing up to or what you're delivering by way of product. If it's 2 items in a box, say it's 2 items in a box. If the hairbrush in the photo is excluded, then say it's excluded and is subject to an additional fee. It's very clear to build that transparency. I was also going.
Can I ask a question? Can I ask a question, Angela? I like that there. So if, for example, Joe Blogs is reselling that relaxer, that hair relaxer, and there's this big brush there, and like what you said, that this guy thinks that, well, maybe it's the relaxer and the brush, but the client in question that's listening to us today is not the manufacturer, he's just the reseller. So he sells it for £10. Mrs. Blue goes away and comes back and says, well, I want my money back because I thought the picture said there was relaxer and a hairbrush. Is Mr. Retailer, is he, I guess, you know what I'm trying to say? Is he wrong?
Is he liable? Yeah, absolutely. So we started touching on this last week, but basically the first thing to determine is whether your client was a consumer, because consumer protection law implies some terms into your transactions. So by a consumer, I mean it's an individual that is purchasing your product or your service outside of a business, a trade, or a professional capacity. So they are purchasing your goods or services for personal consumption, for instance. If the answer to that question is yes, then consumer protection law kicks in, and also what we call the distance selling rules also kick in. One of the things that the distance selling rules say is that you have to provide adequate pre-contract information. And one of the requirements of pre-contract information is there needs to be an accurate description of the good or services. So if your client comes to you and says, you know what, I want a refund because your description was not accurate. You gave me the impression that the hairbrush was included. When I opened the box, it was not included. Then potentially they are entitled to a refund on the basis that your description was inaccurate. I mean, if you think of examples like Argos, they have an electronic car and they say the batteries are not included. There's a reason why they say that. In case you buy the item, open it up, and you're like, oh my God, where are the batteries? So all of these little texts that you see here and there have a legal basis. They've put you on notice that batteries are not included, so you cannot refund on the basis of battery not being included. You'll find that when you're filling in a form for a refund, they ask you on what basis you want the refund, right? And it's because they know that certain grounds trigger an automatic right to a refund. So if you say, for example, they say stuff like the description didn't match what I received, didn't match the description, because they know that that triggers a right to a refund. So to answer your question, Sam, yes, there will be a claim for a refund because the description was inaccurate. Unless Mr. Retailer can say, actually, you know what, this was not my problem, it was your problem. You misunderstood what I was saying. And when I said excluded, you read it as included, but actually it's very clear in there it's excluded. But yes, there's potentially a claim for a refund because the description is inaccurate, particularly if you're dealing with a consumer.
Wow, I love that, and I hope that everyone that is watching is really taking down notes, because if you went to Angela's office, that would cost a lot. Look, people, it's a new year, and one of the things that we want to do is make sure that as many people as possible are enlightened in business, and that every single roadblock that would normally bring about a limitation is removed. We want to make sure that you can get some really good nuggets from some of the best lawyers in town, commercial lawyers. We want to make sure that you get access to the best accountants. We want to make sure that if you want to invest in financial education, you know exactly where to come. If you want to do the almighty marketing digitally, you know where to come. So over the weeks, as the weeks go by, we're going to have different experts coming on, and the purpose is to serve you, our audience. So we want you to tell your friends, tell people that you know in business, share the link, watch the link, share it again. That's why we're live on all the platforms, because we want to help people. In the daytime, we've already got our business sewn up, but in the evening, once a week. The goal is to reach as many people as possible and to make you realize that you're not isolated. You see, for entrepreneurs, the number one problems entrepreneurs have is loneliness. It's loneliness. When it's only you making that decision. So you find that you feel very frustrated. So when you belong to, or you associate with a community, and the community isn't just people that, like you, but people that are going through similar challenges, and people that have diverse types of expertise and diverse levels of commercial savvy, you'd find that you are in a better position. And you also want people that are local practitioners, people that are based here in the UK and trade in the UK and trade internationally. So that's what we are. We are a mastermind group. We have some of the best people. We're not here to sell the mastermind group, but just to let you know that some of the brains you're going to get coming out of here are from the mastermind group. And that's where we really make things happen behind the scenes. But for everyone else out there, we just want to give you golden nuggets. We want you to send in your questions, ask questions, feel free, put them out there so that we can actually really help add value. That's what it's about. I sent an email today, and it was actually really interesting. Do you realize that by tomorrow, the 18th, we would have done 5% of 2022? Yeah, because
that's so shocking.
Yeah, everyone that read that email were like, Sam, I said, no, look at it. It's 365 days. That's where I do my math. 10% of 365 is 36.5. Divide that by 2, 18 days. Today's the 17th. When you wake up tomorrow, we've done 5% of 2022 already. So if you want high levels of productivity, you really need to get into it now, because this is how time goes. People, you listen to the phone, you listen to WhatsApp, you talk to Billy, then you talk to Ray. 5% of the year has gone. So guys, if you're really serious about doubling your productivity, increasing your productivity, it starts with the right habits. And one habit I would encourage you to do is put on your notification every Monday evening, 8 p.m. GMT, 3 p.m. Eastern. Put on that notification and tap into the wealth of knowledge that is here. It's here to help. It's here to add value to you. And when you take it, you find other networks and you keep that fire burning, because you have to have high levels of productivity, or else the next 5% is going. So it's going to be 10% of the year gone. And before you know it, 20, 30, and before you know it, it's going to be January 2023. The only thing that's going to be different might be you're a bit older, but your goals haven't really moved along. And that's what we are here to really, 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 really prevent, right? So I don't think there are any more questions coming in. I think we've just got loads of likes and likes and likes. So we're really happy with that. So thank you guys for the likes. So Angela, have you got any last things to say? Because it's already 20:43. So we've got 2 minutes to wrap up.
Just one final word. So I was going to say that what really makes a difference between like a serious entrepreneur and an unserious entrepreneur is really what I'd say is the operations. I think there's a lot of talented people in our sort of circle, but the truth is it's the operations, and it's things like, your professional marketing, your legal compliance. And unfortunately, I find that with, ethnic minority entrepreneurs, there is sometimes this perception that we are lax when it comes to legal and regulatory compliance. So I think it's really important to rebut that. Don't confirm the stereotypes. Show that you're not only a serious entrepreneur, but you're a professional entrepreneur. And legal compliance is an important part of that. As I said last week, is that even if you produce £3 million annually, all it takes is a claim for £3 million to wipe you in one day. It's that simple, and I've seen it happen. I've advised brands such as IKEA and Asda, and their legal budget is just as big as their marketing budget, because they understand that. So that's sort of my last word, Coach.
Wow. Okay. Thank you so much. So look, guys out there, thank you so much for taking out your time to join us. We really, 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 really appreciate it. Every single minute you've given to us. Family on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, thank you so much from myself and from Angela, have a good night, and we will definitely be connecting with you again very, very, very soon. So good night. And Angela, just to let you know, when I click it here, it's going to go off